Hello everyone. Thank you all very much for coming. I know some of you have moved heaven and earth to be here, and lovely speakers especially. So thank you all. I've had quite an adventure. I've been in Sri Lanka for 3 weeks and it's just blown my mind. It's been extraordinary, and it was interesting because I was already coming here. I've spent about the last 3 years looking at all of the problems. We know what the problems are. I know I'm speaking to a room of experts, and we don't need to list them. But I've really gone in deep. How can we change it? What's gone wrong? And then I come to Sri Lanka, and I was fascinated by Sri Lanka. The Sri, as you mostly know, which means light, and Lanka, which is light lamp in dark water. And that really interests me, that we're delivering this and coming together here. It is a light in dark water, and we are, all of us, in deep dark water together. So one of the things I want to share with you is really my own kind of journey as somebody who's very much in the fashion business, but also deeply concerned as a mum and a human being. And I came across Kohlberg's Stages of Moral Development. He was a kind of obscure psychologist. And there was this phrase, and it jumped out at me, and I knew it was a key. I just knew it. And the phrase was post-conventional thinking. And that, I believe, is something I'd like to explore with you today. But more than that, I would like to give you that key as a gift to continue to explore yourself. Because I think that the reason we are in such trouble is because we are not questioning unexamined assumptions. We just assume that's how it is. Can't change it. But if we start to look and think out of the box, of course, why not? There are plenty of different ways of doing the same thing. We know we're in a crisis. I mean, I really don't want to labour the point, but I do think we need to get real. Over 50% of the rivers in China are dead, and I mean dead. They're not coming back, and that's due to pollution, mostly from garment manufacture. People don't see fashion as pollution. They just don't make the interconnection, because it's so beautiful, it's so pretty, it's such fun, it's so iconic. How can that be harming us? It's only a dress, you know, but actually, yeah. Actually, it's driving our destruction. Fashion is extremely, extremely toxic. And it's not just the pollution, it's not just the chemicals, I think also how we run our industry. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. So, I would consider the ethical treatment of models, or unethical, you know, a kind of pollution as well. You know, I think we should start to look at it in a much more holistic way. And I was interested earlier on in your discussion about bamboo. You know, I think we can get sucked into holes here, which are interesting up to a point, but I think it would serve us all to also look at things holistically. Going back to the water issue, I urge anybody who hasn't read it to read Blue Gold by Maud Barlow, who's a world leader in water experts. And we need to get real about it, because it's all our water, just as Elizabeth so beautifully put, you know, these are shared, this is one world, and we share this water. So it's a sort of hidden agenda within fashion, within all manufacture. Mass production. You know, we've got this weird, old-fashioned model of mass production. It's very quaint, and to me, very 19th century. And maybe we need to start looking at that. Maybe that isn't working. In fact, definitely it's not working. We know it's driving our destruction. So yes, we may have money, but what's the point in having money and a Gucci suit if you have no food? We've got to start connecting. So I did that. I started connecting. I started making strange and random connections. And then I started putting them into action. So this started with a thought, a post-conventional thought about fashion. So the tradition, and it's been an unexamined cycle that goes on and on relentlessly. It's like some ghastly circus, year after year, as many people here will be painfully aware, which are the seasonal fashion shows that go New York, London, Milan, Paris. And every time you see a fashion person, they will tell you that they're exhausted and very, very stressed. And it always, I wondered, I thought, well, why don't you stop it? So then, a couple of years ago, I was very, very, very honoured to work with an extraordinary Iraqi fashion designer. And together we decided to explode the paradigm, just change it. And what we did is we put autumn, winter, and spring, summer on the runway at the same time. And the British Fashion Council, we did it in London, didn't like it. They freaked out. They said, you can't do that, you're breaking the rules. And I said, yes, we know, And we did. And you know what was interesting? The buyers loved it because A, it cut their work out, B, we proved it possible, and C, they could look at their budgets all in one go. So that's an example that could be followed. If you start to think about how much energy is generated, how many thousands and thousands of people come to New York, burn all this carbon, burn all their own creative energy, meaninglessly, I believe, So I think it's something we're going to have to address, whether we like it or not, and this is an important point. The only way that we can do this is by coming out of denial. And I believe that we're in a kind of sort of mesmeric. We've all been slightly mesmerised by fashion, by just not looking properly at what's going on. We just don't. We accept the paradigm and we move on endlessly, relentlessly. And yet that very behaviour is actually driving our destruction. I mean, it is. It is. And it's very shocking when you realise that the fashion industry, more than any other industry, is contributing to that. I mean, this is true. Because somehow we think we're we like to think of ourselves as, it's a very self-congratulatory industry. We think we're very modern and creative and forward-thinking, but actually we're not at all. We're rather backward. What I see here in Sri Lanka, as I've been here, are some incredible examples of post-conventional thinking. For instance, I've been privileged enough to work with the UK graduates who come over from St Martin's, from the Royal College of Art, many of the UK universities, and they're working here with loom weaving in the north, places that have been closed for 30 years because of the war, or little tiny villages, cooperatives, people who are working on. They don't know they're working on this, but they're working with Gandhian principles. Interesting. Think about it. He was a clever man. He knew what he was doing. I think we need to re-examine those. I think there's a way that with smaller runs we could serve, absolutely, as Elizabeth so beautifully put. It starts small. It has to start small. And if we go with community, and if we look at wealth in a new way, so it's not just cash. Cash gets you so far. What about wellness? What about wholeness? What about peace? And it could be, because fashion is full of mavericks, it's full of crazy geniuses. Oddly, it might be fashion that saves the world. It certainly is. I'm seeing it in terms of design with people like Michael, because he thinks out of the box. He's thinking the impossible. He enjoys the challenge. So I think we should all start to think post-conventionally. But coming back to denial, I want to share with you and just kind of park this with you and then maybe open it up if anyone has anything to say. Otherwise, I want to leave this with you. Humans are not very good at change. We don't like it. When you look at Obama, he got in on the change ticket. I mean, you know, it wasn't secret. That was completely his story. And everyone went, yeah, come on, Obama. Now, look at America now. They are not happy. And yet they're the people that voted him in. We, as a species, are no good at change. And yet, if we don't change, we will die. So we need to really get real with ourselves. Now, there was a very wonderful woman called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross who worked with the dying. She was an extraordinary woman. And she found that when people were dying or, you know, had a terrible illness, they went through these 5 stages. And the stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they're quite interesting, each of those. I mean, what I think tends to happen with humans is that we actually bounce between them. You know, it isn't like a straight, because we're not linear. So I think humanity right now is bouncing around between denial, anger, and bargaining. You know, there's plenty of us, myself included. I think we're all included. I've got a blind spot here and there, because I'm still a fashion person. I still love clothes. I think, oh, well, this won't hurt, you know. How is this one pair of shoes going to hurt the world, you know? But when I started to look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of coming out of denial into acceptance, I realised that there was a lever that hadn't been addressed perhaps before now, which was the 6th stage, which is empowerment and action. So I believe this is the time we just have to act. We can't muck about anymore. Talking about carbon offsetting, it's great, but it's not enough. You know, arguing with one another about how green we are or what's working, what's not, it's not enough. We need to broaden our scope and work together. And if we do, I think there's no reason why we can't produce beautiful clothes, make money, and live peacefully and sustainably together. And I'm already seeing those examples here in Sri Lanka with the students I've been gifted enough to work with. So I'll leave it there. Thank you all very much.